Terrence Gallman, today's guest, is an author who leads Gig Group, whose mission is to provide a wide range of high-exposure, resume-building jobs for underprivileged communities and provide an opportunity for those communities to participate in financial markets. He'll share insights about his work and his superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show, where we empower you. Terrence, thank you so much for joining me today. It's so great to connect with you.
Well, thank you, Devin. It's great to be here. Long time looking forward to it.
Well, the honor is all mine. Let me be very, very clear about that. So thank you for making time. You have a very interesting history, and the audience has certainly been introduced to you. But take a minute and just share your story with us.
Well, thank you, Devin. I'll just be honest with you. I got introduced to the financial markets while I was incarcerated, and I was serving a long federal prison sentence. And I remember sitting there, you read everything you can get your hands on. And at this point, I had, been in almost a decade. And I remember reading a story on the Wall Street Journal said that $4 trillion a day go through the financial market. And it was like, wow. And, when you look at incarceration, most people are incarcerated for some financial or some money reason, And when I realized that a lot of our backgrounds were trouble, our influences at some point, had a lot to do with, finances. And I thought that how many world problems could we solve that if everybody in the world knew that $4 trillion a day go through the market? And I knew at that point that I would want to use that information to help address things in urban communities, especially where we were economically challenged, and look for ways to get involved in the world somewhat financially. And that influence would have to be entertainment, and that influence would have to be financially related. So I want to thank you for the work that you've been doing, that I've been, having access to, over 10 years. I've been home, since 2008. So I've had a lot of time. I had more time out here to work on getting to this place than I had when I was there. So just want to thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you here. It is interesting to think about your book becoming a movie. Tell us about the book, and then we'll talk a little bit more. But tell us about the book first.
Well, the book Finding Me, I wrote during that same period, actually early on. It's been about almost 25 years ago. It's titled Finding Me, and it was, a young 20-year-old Black male incarcerated, where you become bitter before you become better. So it was like a journal of during this time trying to find out, serving a lengthy sentence. Why did I learn more things about my society when I was incarcerated versus when I was on the street, as if, everybody knew I would end up where I was except for me, so it was my journal, coming into my own young, adult lifehood incarcerated, where you start to learn about history. You start learning about your history, your background. So it's a journal of that, more of a path of rediscovery, where I learned, through reading, facing my fears with civil rights, and just understanding exactly how society worked, what, the whole political base were, and wanted to know, how I ended up where I was.
Yeah. Your story is inspiring, and now you're making it into a movie, and you've got some real, legit people on the team helping you make this film. Tell us a little bit about the team, the script writer. Tell us a little bit about the movie.
We're making a movie, and this is part of it. I just want to share with you, because truly we began with this in mind of wanting to help people in society, how to bridge the gap and connect people across all spectrum, economically, socially, psychologically, because it's just about, meeting people and connected, and being a bridge, for people across society. Because you think about, the communities that most people come from, depending on your influence, depending on what choices that you find available. So it's not about what somebody who know how things work tell somebody. It's about the person who don't know how things work and the decisions that they make based on the influences in their life. And so I started with wanting people to read the book that I wrote, Finding Me. And of course, I started sending that manuscript home when I was incarcerated. And a lot of people like, well, people out in society got so much going on, they don't have time to hear about somebody who've already, taken themselves out of society. So there's no reason for them to give you their time. And, some of the guys mentioned, but once you get out and create some momentum, maybe people, start to want to hear what you have to say. And of course, it was a long journey once I got out, even for my own self, is understanding why recidivism is so high and the mistakes that we make. By the time you learn how things really work, you're already back inside. So I took that manuscript and I started reaching out to people doing Ferguson and some of the issues to help young urban males understand what it's like to go through the criminal justice system as a means of prevention. And two, how not to become a suspect. And of course, over the years, we've seen people that traditionally should not have become a suspect end up being the victim of a lot of police brutality issues and things of that nature. So my work was just trying to be part of the solution. And I actually took the book and, started meeting with some of the people who were working in entertainment. I was like, well, this is going to be a tough subject because, nobody wanted to touch it. I mean, I went to leaders from around the community, went from leaders around the state and ended up traveling nationally and internationally to get people to support it. And unless someone had that background of troubled times, they were not touching the subject. And of course, I met with Vincent Cole, who actually was acting, played a role in the Game of Thrones, part of the Irish Troubles. I grew up with a challenged background who was online and say, look, I'm desperate at this point. I just started posting about it online. And he's like, well, I like what you're doing. And I reached out to him, actually, would he be a part of it? And he said, sure, send him my vision. And I sent him the vision that I want to help urban males not to become a suspect. He said, well, look, I grew up on the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King, nonviolent social justice movement. And I saw young Black males as a means of inspiration. And I was like, wow, that solved a lot of problems because most young Black males never heard that they've inspired a race outside of themselves. And to hear him, say that, and I went to do my own research on how the Irish Bloody Sunday went. John Hume, who's the only recipient of the 3 major peace awards in the world, and gave credit to Dr. Martin Luther King for the Nobel Peace Prize. And that just, that gave me no reason to ever turn back at that point. And I knew that story had to be told. And he gave me his support. We started the first ever Day of Reconciliation in the U.S. in South Carolina. Right ahead of the Confederate flag, the Walter Scott shooting, the Mother Emanuel. So it was a timely, part of outreach for us. And so when I went to get the play done, I said, well, look, maybe, because it's a hard subject, even people who are incarcerated, once you get out, you can't tell anybody you've been incarcerated. So some of the solution-oriented people that could be a part of it, it's just not socially acceptable to talk about it. And I went to get the play done, and most of the people in the entertainment industry said they could not connect with the characters. And so I was like, wow. And they were like, well, yeah, of course. Then I got to even more professional people, and they said, well, look, unless you manipulate the story, nobody's coming to the theater to see a social justice seemingly be anti-police, anti-governmental system project. So I'm like, man, this is the problem, right? So I had to keep working at that point. And that's been over 10 years now. And so I thought that if we did a play and we wrote a theater play, people could see what it's like the coping system of going through the justice system. And that play would show even people who've been incarcerated could say, hey, look, this is what I went through. This is in the family, the victims could talk about this, how this impacted my life. So I thought entertainment would be a part of to start this conversation. Because when you're incarcerated, you do have to survive. And it's not that you got to work with law enforcement. I mean, you got to, your team, your counselor, the chaplain, all that is law enforcement. You got to survive in there because you got to try to make it out to, be a solution to the family and the community and things that, who need you to be a better person. And so that's part of what I wrote with the play. And of course, as soon as I tried to do the play, again, it was just 10 years ago. So, nobody was touching it at that time. And so I was able to get the screenplay in the hands of Stuart Yee, who is a producer in Hollywood, early stage. He had a 30-year acting career, like I know with Fast and Furious, Rush Hour, Nash Bridge. And I knew he worked with Chris Tucker and, Lorenz. All of those guys were part of those franchises. And I was like, wow, those guys work together. And I knew, the Atlanta Penitentiary in Atlanta sits right in the city, right in the urban community. And it's sort of one of those Russian roulette things where you live in the community that you hustle in. And the most infamous penitentiary is at the red light. I mean, so what chances do you get to even think about changing your life if the way that you see getting involved economically is right by where you go spend the rest of your life in prison? And so I wanted to use Chris Tucker background. I wanted to use Chris Tucker and those guys as a way of trying to connect them with the subject. And so Stuart worked with Scott McCullough, and Scott, who did work for Prince, and I know Prince was iconic. He's a god in the Black community. So I knew if I could get Scott Stewart, those work on it. And Scott told me he worked with Clay Ayers, who actually wrote several films for Quentin Tarantino. He wrote 5 years for Abandoned Park. And I knew then we all knew Django. I knew then we all knew that. And so we connected with Clay, and Clay actually was the keynote speaker for all of Los Angeles County Correctional Institution. And, he having, been in Comic-Con, and, I just knew that background would give us a chance if he would work with us. And he got involved to work with us on the script, a year ago, and say, look, I like the story, and, I like to work with you on getting it, get it written. And we just got the script done a few weeks ago. And so we're here.
Fantastic. Well, Terrence, as you think about your experience and the book and the movie, if you could summarize a key message for your target audience, what is that message?
Whether you're the problem or not, you're gonna have to be all of the solution. You're gonna have to be all of the resolve. There's no shortcoming. There could be no blame. There could be no finger pointing. I mean, you're gonna have to do it all. You're not gonna be able to justify not making the most of your life and your opportunity, regardless of who you may think you can find to blame. And this screenplay allows us to convey that. It's one of the most extreme pieces that I've come in contact with, to be able to share that message of trial, triumph, and redemption.
Yeah, that's a powerful message. I think about it in my own life, and I realize my experience is different than yours, but I think about a desire to blame other people, a desire to make excuses for my failings, my shortcomings, and my the failure to accomplish some of the things that I want to accomplish. And your message resonates with me. That may make me feel better to be thinking about the blame I can assign to someone else, the excuses I can make. But that doesn't make me more successful. Right? If I want to accomplish something, I have to own the responsibility. That's a powerful message, I think.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that with me. I'm thinking about that in a new way today because of you.
Thank you.
You've accomplished a lot, especially when you think about where you were 25 years ago. What do you see as your superpower?
The ability to connect prison and that whole experience, and again, I ended up in prison because I was part of a drug ring, but my influence came, within my own house. I was introduced to drugs by my stepfather. So I kind of looked at my life from a victim perspective as though it was stole. So saving face, and the ability to realize that, you have to connect with people on any level. I mean, you can't look down on anybody. You have to make them be a part of your story, make them be a part of your success. And so I think my superpower is the ability to connect with people from any aspect, any walk of life, and just, being someone that never beat or have to take anything from anyone. And I always find yourself in the ability to give. At the end of the day, I've had what you consider commercial success. But I've had the ultimate lows and the ultimate failures in life. And that exists today. I mean, millions of people, we take for granted what it's like putting somebody in solitary confinement. We take for granted what it means to have handcuffs put on somebody. And we're in a very sad state when you can't empathize or sympathize with somebody, and this thing that we think that makes us better, is not recognizing those things where we're really challenged at. And I think that in itself makes us all vulnerable. And so my part in this whole thing of evolution is just sharing that, because I know what that feels like, from the drugs to the incarceration, as well as the success. And I think being able to be part of the part that give people opportunity, I think that's my superpower. I think that's my role in every aspect of it.
Fantastic. So, Terrence, as you think about your superpower, can you think about an experience, something you've accomplished in life as a result of that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll share on the anniversary of the Jobs Act. I'll share, and this is why I was so excited to connect with you and meet with you. This is the first time in all of the 15, possibly 20 years that I've been familiar with, the financial market and how things work. And so often I consulted with, companies and people to make sure they had this opportunity. And, I never saw that personally I would have to take the lead on a particular company, a particular project, and become a mascot, for how to do this work. And it's simultaneous to you. I've been following you, like I said, for 10 years, and you've had to take on some really challenging opportunities in your career that could have been very, very easily different. And I've watched that. And so that's been an example for me. It's like, if someone like yourself did not, Forbes and, the United States, I mean, there's just so many other things that you could have just took for granted and moved on with your life. And you kept fighting for the underdog. You kept fighting for the people who were challenged. And so that's been the example of that, and have encouraged me that, we have to sometimes take leadership roles from these challenge, circumstances or environment in order to be an example. So on the eve of the Jobs Act, and you look at the millions of companies that has been, millions of people who've been affected by, people who've been able to incorporate, this whole SEC exemption through crowdfunding and getting people involved from the local perspective. For me, having the background of coming from, the criminal justice system, and being able to connect with Ben & Marito law firm, who has that experience, securities and criminal justice background, who structure businesses, startups, and having to take that, 5 years ago and reach out to them in order to create an asset that people could be a part of, and to work through those years to get an asset like the production team that we've assembled and the productions that we have, in order to market as well as fund. I think that this whole thing have just been about making myself available for the opportunity, because it have come with every piece. Like, even, you're introducing us to a whole nother, environment, a whole nother level of opportunity that, it's a model even for itself. So the movie is getting bigger, and man, we haven't even put on set yet. And just to give you a snippet of that, it lands on Wall Street, which was part of 15 years ago, where, I was part of, consulting small businesses, and getting there and to be able to do this work ahead of even shooting that, and to connect with you and your audience and the people that, has been most influential around the world. So we're not talking about people who just, watch, the show, but I mean, you've been everywhere in front of everybody in the world that, anybody would want to be in front of and share their story. And now we have a business opportunity to share that could be part of the solution for the same issues that we once blamed for our conditions. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You really are too generous with the praise, but I'm grateful for the connection and the opportunity I have to learn from you. As you think about your superpower, how would you coach someone else to develop that strength?
Humility. We're too often, we take rejection we take it personally, but we're only talking about systems and things and paperwork and filing exemptions. So we have to become a student of the opportunity, and not take it personally. It's professional, when somebody do not, open a door for you that you think will solve all of your problems. It's okay. It's an opportunity for you to, find, more creative ways to address that issue, but it still remains yours. Too often we go right to the blame game versus, using that as an opportunity to learn to educate ourselves and, looking at it more of a competition, in sports, you have to, you shoot the ball and you miss, you got to get back on defense. You can't just walk out to the sideline and argue with the ref. You give up an easy basket, easy score on the other end. So I think we have to see this opportunity. So I would, use sports as a means of telling somebody, if you're trying to accomplish something, look at it as competition. Look at it as though, you're going to take some no's, you're going to miss some shots, but that blame game is probably the least effective way to get somebody to be a part of what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
That's a fantastic insight. Very powerful. Well, listen, Terrence, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Before we wrap up, will you take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about the Gallman Investment Group and you and your books, how they can connect with you on social media or otherwise? Give us a rundown of all the different ways people can follow up so they can find the right one.
Well, coming up on our biggest opportunity to get everybody involved is our crowdfunding campaigns that is going live on WeFunder. We're looking to pitch at Super Crowd 23. So we're going live to organize that official pitch. Our website is giggroupinc.com. That tells you a lot about the production. We do have a link to our fundraising campaign on there. It gives you, some of the connection we've made across our over a decade of, of being, out here. The book, Finding Me, is available on Amazon. I have another title, Wall Street Bond, The Urban Renaissance, that's available on Amazon. That's what this whole effort for me has been about, the urban renaissance. That's been my goal. And I call it the Wall Street Bond because we're connecting people with the financial market. So you can, connect with me on Facebook. It's Terrence Gallman. We have the Wall Street Bonds, the Urban Renaissance page as well. We have the film that we have, No Right Way, is there. On Twitter, we have Terrence Gallman. Instagram, Terrence Gallman. So those things are available for anybody to get involved in what we're doing. And we have a short WeFunder link on Bitly that is the Gig Crowd, and that's GIG caps, GIG Crowd. And so we're planning to launch that and make that visible along with the opportunities you share and giving with us so people can, make the connection socially.
Fantastic. Well, Terrence, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We really want to see you succeed in all the different things that you're doing to help enable, empower, and build communities. And we want to see you succeed. So we wish you every success.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor to be able to create an asset that local people can own and invest in. And being a part of the future production gives us an opportunity to market this whole effort, even connected with you all going forward with future production. No Right Way is just the beginning. It's probably the smallest of all the plans we have, but you can never knock small beginning. It is a part of everything that you have to do. And it's keeping us humble as well. So thank you, Devin. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, let's do some good.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers, 4, good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.